Today, we're discussing how to get started in video as a career or a hobby. We'll go over the best tools to start with and what to avoid. And I can only speak from my experience, so what you're about to hear is my opinion. This video is mainly for beginners, so if you're like at a intermediate level photography, videography, this might not help you. It's mainly for people who have not jumped into the photography video field yet. So this is 4 of the most basic things you need to start. In the future, I'll have videos that are more advanced and cover more advanced equipment. So when I first started out in this field, I was pretty young, not like 3 or anything. I was in, I think, middle school. And back then I was into photography. I took pictures with a little point and shoot Sony Cybershot. It was a bad camera, but I was a bad photographer. And at the time I thought it was a good camera. So I also probably thought I was a good photographer. So as I got more and more into shooting, naturally I wanted to upgrade. So eventually I got a Nikon D5000. I had done tons of research on this camera, and I needed it. It was a huge deal for me. Basically, it had all the controls and dials that I could want at that age. For video, it could record 720p. That was pretty standard at that time. I played around with that camera forever, recording videos, taking pictures. A few years later, I was even more serious into the hobby, and I started looking for my next camera. Since I was familiar with Nikon, I figured I'd just stick with them. There were definitely other cameras out there I could have chosen at the time, but I wanted to go full frame, and the Nikon D610 was kind of like a good step up from that, and it was full frame. I do still use this camera to this day, although it's probably going to be replaced soon for client work. It's really only ever used for a B cam during interviews, and the reason for that is it only shoots 1080p up to 30 frames a second. It's got decent dynamic range, no autofocus while recording, and a 20-minute record limit. So all that to say, this field is something that can definitely take time to master. You can be on the hunt for the perfect camera, the perfect lens, perfect piece of gear, and you'll never find it. Basically, the way I see it is you should start where it makes the most sense for you at the time, and as your experience level grows, you can upgrade your gear to fit your abilities. Your gear should always make you think. And if you're using a camera and you're not asking questions or problem solving, one of 2 things could be wrong. All of your settings are on auto, or you have outgrown your gear, or there's a possibility your gear is too smart for you. I'll explain what I mean in a second. Having all your settings on auto is like having the stupidest person you know file your taxes. Sure, they may get it right, or they may get it incredibly wrong, and you are held accountable. Your camera may be able to focus on an object, but is it the object that you wanted it to focus on? Is it the part of the shot you wanted to be exposed? How about the shutter speed? Was that an artistic choice to have it at 1/2000th of a second? Without control of your camera, you're leaving it to chance if anything actually works out the way you want it to. And yes, cameras and phones have grown pretty good in the last few years to be able to record great video. But unless you know how to take control of your camera, you won't be able to tell the story you want to tell. The other problem could be that you already know your camera like the back of your hand, and it's time for an upgrade. Now this is rare because most people just go through cameras like crazy and they don't stick with one long enough to learn everything, to know exactly how it behaves and what to do in every scenario. So for me, I got to the point with both my Nikons. I got comfortable shooting with it and nothing surprised me. I knew what to do in every scenario, pretty much, to get a good looking shot. But that's exactly what you want, especially if you're using a camera with limited potential. Say you're using a camera with poor dynamic range. You will have to know lighting very well in order to get that camera, the image, looking good. There's almost nothing you can do to save a shot that's too dark on a bad camera, and definitely no way to fix an overexposed shot. Once your highlights clip, that's it. So you become a better filmmaker because of your camera's downfalls. Say your camera doesn't have a microphone, so then you're forced to figure out how to capture audio instead of simply relying on the built-in mic that will sound terrible anyway. So you become a better filmmaker. The other problem, which is possible if you blew an insane amount of money on your camera, is having one that's smarter than you. Sometimes having an amazing camera is bad if you're still learning. A shot that would look bad to an entry-level DSLR may look fine to a Red or an Arri. This comes from high dynamic range and good ISO performance. Built-in NDs, lens stabilization, basically the camera is compensating for your lack of knowledge. You may have made a mistake, but the camera covered for you. This might sound nice, but in the end, you are the one that needs to have the knowledge, not the camera. So what should you invest in first? Well, here's my list. These are the things I think are required to start out making content, either for play, what the oh, pay. Somebody can't read. These are the things I think are required to start out making content either for pay or for your own enjoyment. Shooting a film, a wedding, commercial, a vlog. These are all things you need for each of these situations. Number 1, A camera. Could be your phone, could be an entry-level DSLR or mirrorless camera. Seriously, don't overlook your phone. Most new Androids and definitely iPhones have the capability to be excellent cameras. The single most important aspect with both is being able to have manual control over everything. For a phone, this may mean filming on an app like Filmmaking Pro, which would replace your factory camera app and allow you to control settings and film in higher quality. For a camera, this means making sure you can access manual controls, and it's a great idea to find one with a 3.5mm mic input and a headphone jack for monitoring your audio. And having the ability to change lenses can also be important. Number 2, audio. This is one category you do not want to skimp on. Audio is as important as video, if not more important. Viewers will quickly dismiss lower quality video if your audio is excellent, not the other way around. Bad audio will be noticed and leave a bad impression even if you're using an expensive camera. The built-in microphones in cameras are generally not used for capturing any usable audio. They can be used as a scratch track for reference, but that's about it. Plug in an external microphone to your camera or record using a separate system, like a field recorder, which is what I'm recording on now. You'll have to link up a separate audio track to your video when you're editing, but it may be a better option than plugging a mic straight into your camera. Number 3, tripod. The only reason this comes before number 4 on my list is because, in my opinion, it's very hard to work without a tripod if you need one. Get a decent tripod to start. One with a ball head, very simple, that's sturdy and that'll hold your camera safely. Generally, pans and tilts aren't as important as you might think to start off. You can practice your handheld moves to get more dynamic shots if you want. And finally, number 4. Lighting is one of those things that can make your video look great or terrible, depending if you know what you're looking for. The cheapest option in this category is to shoot using natural light and bounce what you can off a white poster board, or you can invest in a reflector set. You can also buy a cheap frosted shower curtain to recreate some softer lighting. The sun is your best friend, but try to stay away from harsh midday sun. The shadows are not pleasing, so try to shoot early in the day or late in the day. Golden hour and blue hour can be the most cinematic times of the day to shoot video. As you get more experience, a simple lighting kit can be one of your first investments, and that'll make a big difference. So that's my list. 4 things you need to get started creating content. Again, this is all subjective, and you may have your own opinions. You may have one or more of these 4 things already listed. Just focus on what you have and you can upgrade later. To summarize, learn on a camera that gives you complete control of all aspects of shooting. Frame rate, shutter speed, aperture, ISO, white balance. Master all aspects of your camera before you upgrade. I promise it's not as hard as it sounds. Try to make the image out of your camera as good as possible before you upgrade to try to fix some problems you might be having to get a better image. Almost all cameras today shoot great video, so if something doesn't seem to be working, do some research and try to figure out the problem. Capture good audio. Use a microphone placed as close to the sound source as possible. A lavalier microphone or a shotgun microphone are probably the first 2 kinds I would say to purchase. The right one for you depends on a lot of different factors. The shooting environment, a lavalier microphone might be better in a loud environment, and a shotgun microphone might be better in an outdoor setting away from echoes that interfere with its pickup pattern. Camera movement is important, and so is a good static shot. So get a reliable tripod and focus on composition and subject movement before you worry about camera movement, or perfect your handheld moves. If you want some ideas on how to use your camera without moving it, I would look into some David Fincher films. He is excellent at knowing when to move the camera. Most of his shots come from a camera on sticks. Camera's not moving. And when the camera does move, it makes more of an impact because it wasn't moving for 90% of the film. If you're able to, light your shot. Brighter is almost always better than too dark. Your camera will have more information and you'll be able to adjust your settings accordingly. Although you may need ND filters if you're filming outside on a bright day, and we'll talk about those in a different video. They're basically sunglasses for your camera that allow you to choose how much light gets into the lens without adjusting other settings. If you research what you want before buying, you'll be sure you get exactly what you need. Also, don't be afraid to rent something before you think of buying it. If you rent a camera and decide you don't like it, you can save a ton of money and time before making the big commitment. And one more tip. When you're looking into buying your first camera, or maybe you already have a camera, One of the most important things about a camera is not the body, but the glass. Knowing what lens system you're buying into can be well worth researching. If you buy a camera only to learn that the lens selection is not good, there's not much room to grow. Sony, Canon, Nikon all have great lens selections, whereas other brands might only have a few really good lenses and a handful of third-party options. This fact has kept me from buying a couple cameras because the lens selection simply wasn't there for me, mainly for video. But anyway, that's it for this video. I hope that was somewhat helpful to hear about the process that I went through and still do go through when upgrading my gear. It can be really intimidating at first to know where to start. Once you get started, you can find so many good resources online to help you through any challenge you might come into. Years ago, it was only film school, college, and you can find out almost everything you need to know online for free or for a very small price, taking a course. It's so much easier than it used to be. And read books. Do not forget about books. There's so many good books out there. Go to a used bookstore, and I bet you there will be so many books for photography and probably some for video too. If you found this video helpful, think of someone who might benefit from watching it too, and send it to them. And of course, consider subscribing. I'm going to be covering many different topics, and it may be something that could help you out. So thank you so much for watching, and if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. That lets me know if you guys like these kinds of videos, and I will do more. See you in the next one.